There was something strange happening on Ethan Brooks' farm. Every morning, just before sunrise, he found the same thing, a narrow path running straight through the middle of his cornfield. Not flattened, not eaten, not destroyed, just parted. As though something had walked between the rows without touching a single stalk. The first morning, Ethan ignored it. The second morning, he blamed the wind. By the seventh morning, he stopped mentioning it altogether. Because every time he brought it up, people laughed. "You've been working too many hours. Probably deer. Maybe your corn's got ghosts." Ethan laughed with them, at least on the outside. But the path kept returning. Every morning, always before sunrise, always in exactly the same place. For 34 nights, the corn seemed to move on its own. Then the sheriff came. A wildlife officer followed. 2 university researchers drove 3 hours to see it for themselves. None of them could explain what they were looking at. The answer had been lying beneath Ethan Brooks' farm for nearly 80 years. Ethan Brooks wasn't the kind of man who chased mysteries. He was 46 years old, a third-generation farmer outside Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Broad shoulders, sunburned neck, hands so rough they looked carved from old leather. He believed in weather forecasts, soil reports, machinery that started when you turned the key, and problems you could solve with enough patience. His grandfather had broken this ground with horses. His father had switched to tractors. Now Ethan grew nearly 400 acres of corn and soybeans, along with a small herd of Angus cattle. He knew every fence line, every drainage ditch, every patch of stubborn clay that refused to grow anything but weeds. At least, he thought he did. Nothing unusual had ever happened here, not in his father's lifetime, not in his grandfather's. The farm was ordinary, predictable, quiet. Until one August morning, it wasn't. The path measured barely 3 feet across, too narrow for machinery, too straight for the wind, too clean for wildlife. The stalks leaned away from one another as though someone had gently walked between them, carefully avoiding every leaf. By lunchtime, they stood upright again, as if nothing had happened. Ethan assumed it was coincidence, until it happened again, and again, and again. By the second week, Ethan had stopped asking whether the path would appear. Instead, he wondered what time it would. Every morning, 4:50, coffee in hand, rubber boots still wet with dew, he'd walk to the edge of the field, and there it was, exactly the same width, exactly the same direction, beginning at the northern fence, ending near the center of the field. Never longer, never shorter, never shifting even a few inches. He started carrying a notebook. August 9th, same path. August 10th, same path. August 11th, cloudy overnight, still there. August 12th, heavy wind, still there. August 13th, rain after midnight, still there. The notebook became 2 notebooks, then 3. He measured soil moisture, wind speed, humidity, night temperatures. Nothing matched. The path followed no weather pattern, no farming schedule, no logical explanation. It simply appeared, then vanished. Every single day. One evening, his wife, Emily, found him sitting silently at the kitchen table. "You've hardly touched your dinner." Ethan looked up. "Have you ever seen corn move?" Emily smiled. "In the wind?" "No." He hesitated. "I mean, move by itself." She laughed softly. "You've officially worked too much this season." He smiled back, but something in his expression made her stop smiling. "You aren't joking." He slowly shook his head. "No." The following morning, Ethan entered the field before sunrise. Flashlight in one hand, thermos in the other. He followed the mysterious corridor from one end to the other. Nothing. No footprints. No broken leaves. No snapped stalks. No claw marks. Not even disturbed soil. It looked impossible. Later that afternoon, he inspected every fence surrounding the property. Every latch was secure. Every gate locked. No tire tracks entered the farm. He borrowed 2 trail cameras from his neighbor, Mike Dawson. Mike was 62, retired from dairy farming. The kind of man who believed every mystery eventually had a simple answer. He grinned while helping Ethan mount the cameras. "What are we hoping to catch?" "I don't know," Mike laughed. "If it's Bigfoot, I want exclusive rights." Ethan forced a smile. "I'll split the profits." Neither man believed anything unusual would appear. The cameras recorded 8 straight hours. Wind, crickets, an owl. Nothing else. The next morning, the path was back. Exactly where it had always been. The cameras had captured absolutely nothing. Not a person, not an animal, not even a shadow. For the first time since it started, Ethan felt something he hadn't expected. Not fear, doubt. Not about the field, about himself. He replayed the footage 3 more times, walked back into the corn, stared at the silent path stretching toward the center of the field, then quietly asked himself a question he never thought he'd ask. What am I missing? Word travels quickly in farming communities. By the 3rd week, people weren't asking Ethan how his corn was growing. They were asking about the path. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they wanted to prove there was a simple explanation. His neighbor Mike brought 2 more farmers one Saturday morning. They stood at the edge of the field just before sunrise, coffee cups warming their hands against the cool Iowa air. They waited. Nothing happened. Then, as the first light crept over the horizon, one of them quietly pointed. There. The stalks were moving. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Just a slow, almost imperceptible lean. 1 row, then the next, then another. Like invisible fingers, gently separating the corn. No sound, no animal, no person, just the plants themselves. For nearly 15 minutes they watched the narrow corridor appear. When the movement stopped, nobody spoke. Finally, Mike cleared his throat. I've farmed for 40 years. He kept staring at the field. I've never seen anything like that. The jokes disappeared after that morning. A week later, the county sheriff drove out. He walked the path from one end to the other. He searched for footprints, broken stems, hidden wires, anything. Finding nothing, he shrugged. If somebody's doing this, he looked across the endless rows of corn. They're doing a remarkable job of disappearing. The wildlife officer came next. He ruled out deer, coyotes, wild turkeys, raccoons, even feral hogs, though none had ever been reported that far north. Nothing fit. Animals leave signs. This path left none. News reached the Agriculture Department at Iowa State University. 2 researchers volunteered to investigate. One specialized in crop physiology. The other studied soil behavior. For 3 days they collected samples, measured moisture, checked nutrient levels, installed temperature sensors beneath the surface. Every test came back normal. One researcher admitted something Ethan never expected to hear. I don't have an explanation. Then something changed. A late summer thunderstorm rolled across the county. Heavy rain fell most of the night. By morning, Ethan expected the mysterious path to disappear. Instead, it looked stronger than ever. The corn above the corridor leaned farther than before. The soil there was noticeably darker. Not muddy, just cooler. As if moisture lingered beneath that narrow strip long after the surrounding field had begun to dry. That afternoon, Ethan took a shovel into the corn. He dug carefully. 1 foot, 2 feet, nothing. Only dark Iowa soil. He moved another 10 yards and dug again. Still nothing. The mystery only deepened. The farm dog, Duke, added another piece to the puzzle. Duke had followed Ethan through every field for nearly 10 years, but whenever they approached the mysterious corridor, he stopped, not frightened, just unwilling. He'd sit quietly, ears forward, watching Ethan continue alone. Then he'd wait until Ethan returned before walking again. Animals notice things people miss. Ethan couldn't explain Duke's behavior any more than he could explain the corn. That evening, Emily found him sitting on the porch long after sunset. "You've been thinking about that field all day." He nodded. "I keep feeling like it's trying to tell me something." She smiled gently. "Fields don't talk." Ethan looked toward the dark outline of the corn. No, they grow. The breakthrough came from someone nobody expected. Harold Jenkins was 78 years old, a retired county surveyor. He'd spent 40 years measuring farms, roads, creeks, and property lines across eastern Iowa. After hearing about Ethan's field, Harold asked a simple question. "Has anyone looked at the old maps?" Everyone assumed he meant recent survey maps. He shook his head. "No, the old ones." 2 days later, Harold returned carrying a weathered leather tube. Inside was a county survey map dated 1942. The paper was yellow with age, its edges cracked from decades of careful folding. He spread it across the hood of Ethan's pickup. Then he traced a faded pencil line with one weathered finger. "Do you see this?" Ethan leaned closer. It looked like a narrow channel crossing the property diagonally. "What is it?" Harold smiled. "Not a road. Not a railroad. A drainage system." Nearly 90 years earlier, before Ethan's grandfather bought the farm, local farmers had built an underground stone drainage channel to carry excess water from the low fields into a nearby creek. It had been hand-built, stone by stone, then buried. When modern drainage tiles replaced it years later, everyone forgot the original channel even existed. Except, the land hadn't forgotten. The university researchers returned. This time, they weren't studying the corn. They were studying the ground beneath it. Using ground-penetrating radar, they traced the forgotten stone channel almost perfectly beneath the mysterious path. The results explained everything. The old stone drain held moisture differently from the surrounding soil. During warm summer nights, cooler air collected along the buried channel. Tiny amounts of condensation formed before dawn. The corn rooted directly above that forgotten line absorbed just enough additional moisture to change its internal water pressure. Not enough for anyone to notice during the day, just enough for the stalks to lean apart before sunrise. As the morning sun warmed them, the pressure equalized. The stalks slowly straightened again. Every morning, the land quietly revealed where generations of farmers had once worked beneath the surface. The mysterious path wasn't something walking through the corn. It was history, growing back to the surface. Today, visitors still ask Ethan Brooks about the mysterious path. Some arrive expecting a ghost story. Others hope for an unbelievable secret. Instead, Ethan hands them a copy of the old survey map. Then he walks them into the field. He doesn't point at the corn. He points beneath their boots. Because the greatest mystery on his farm was never what moved through the field. It was what the land refused to forget. Long after the stones had been buried, long after the men who built them were gone, the earth was still remembering their work. And every summer morning, for just a few quiet minutes before sunrise, it told anyone patient enough to watch. The Farmer's Ledger. Every farm has a story. Some are written above the ground. The most remarkable ones are buried beneath it.